Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Amrita. I am here with a video on cell structure and class 11 CB chapter. The depth of this video or this chapter is for NEET. So, people or students who are preparing for NEET, hope this is useful for you. And this video series is available in English as well as in Tamil. You can also share it with your uh, relatives and friends who would prefer an explanation in Tamil. So, this is a small introduction about myself. Now, before we go into the details of cell, learning the structure, function of cell organelles, we'll quickly have a look at the history, story behind how the cell was discovered, who were the scientists who were involved in it. So, to start with, in the year 1660, it was Robert Hooke who actually first discovered cells. So, he observed Hawk cells under the microscope and found out that observed some structures like this, and he called these structures as little room. Little. So the cork cells were dead cells because they were actually taken from the bark of the tree. So basically, in those days, they had glass bottles and we did not have caps, so there was no plastic at that time, right? So they used to cut down a lot of trees and make some and scrape it off in such a shape that it fits the bottle and make some caps out of it. So he observed this, made a thin slice out of it, kept it under the microscope, and observed how they look. And what he observed was some cells like this. They look like rectangular shaped small. So if you see here, this is how they looked. This is exactly the picture. This is actually the same picture that was found in his book. Micrographia was the book that he had published. So it's the same book that is from that same book. This image has been taken. So this is what he observed, and he gave the term cellulae, from which we now use cell. Cellulae is the term from which we now derived, and now we frequently use this cell. Okay. So this was the first. He was the first person basically. Secondly, it was in the year 1674, Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Now, what did he do? He observed living cells under the microscope. He went on further to discover protozoans, red blood cells, sperm cells, bacterial cells, and many other. So Anton van Leeuwenhoek is credited with the discovery of living cells and Robert Hooke with the discovery of dead cells. So also Anton van Leeuwenhoek he coined the term animal. Then in the year 1838 and 39, we have Theodor Schwann and Matthias Schleiden. So Schleiden, he actually observed plant cells, and he said that plants also are made up of cells. Similarly, around the same time in 1839, we have Schwann who worked on animal cells. And he concluded that animal cells and plant cells look similar except for the cell wall, which is absent in animal cells. So this is what these people did, both of them. Then we have in 1855 Rudolf Virchow who said that the concept of cell division basically. So what did he do? He told that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Now this is the concept of cell division. We have a parent cell which divides and gives rise to daughter cells. So two daughter cells form from a parent cell. Then so all these three together we have the cell theory postulate. A cell is the basic functional and fundamental and structural unit of life. So that is what the whole gist of cell theory is. Eden, Schwann, and Virchow. All these three are credited for the cell theory. So let's move ahead and see. So this was Anton van Leeuwenhoek's microscope, handheld microscope that he had developed on his own. This was the lens. Here was the lens, and to see it through this, the way this person is seeing. This is how you're supposed to observe the specimen which will be placed. So in those days, they used to make their own microscopes as well. There wasn't much of a science or advanced science at that time that they had built-in microscopes. already. So this is the cell theory jointly put forward by Schleiden, Schwann. So Schleiden worked on plant cells, Schwann worked on animal cells, found that they lacked cell. Virchow said cell walls come from pre-existing cells. So this is what the cell theory postulates. All living organisms are composed of one or more cells. Cell is the structural and functional unit of life, and new cells develop from division of pre-existing cells. So this covers cell theory. Now coming to the diversity of cell, okay, a particular cell, if you take, or cells that are found in nature, there's enough diversity. Cell size and cell shape, with respect to cell size or cell shape, there is so much of diversity that is already present. If you see, if you take up the cell size, smallest cell is a mycoplasma. The mycoplasma is nothing but a bacterial cell. It's also a bacteria, but a smallest bacteria. Average size of a bacterial cell is 3 to 5 micrometer. When I mean 3 to 5 micrometer, it's 0.003 centimeter. You can imagine how tiny this could be. If we have a 1 centimeter, we divide it into 100 parts, we'll get 0.01. 0.01 is self very tiny to be observed through a naked eye. This is our maximum limit actually. Maximum limit that a naked eye can see is 0.01 centimeter. This is 0.003 centimeter, even more less, even more small. Okay, it's literally very tiny. So our eye will not be able to observe something so small without any specialized instrument. So that is why the microscope's discovery is so important and so significant. Okay, very important. Now, when you have a bacterial cell, we say it's 3 to 5 micrometer. Mycoplasma is just zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.5 micrometer, even more small. Human erythrocytes, that is the RBCs, it's 7 micrometer in diameter. So we have to do so when we give our blood, how do they culture it? How do they see it? They see it under a microscope because it's 7 micrometer in diameter. It's impossible to be viewed with the naked eye. Similar lymphocytes, what are lymphocytes? WBC, immune cells. They are 6 micrometers in diameter. Cells of kidney, liver, and skin. So these are all small. Okay, when we say liver cell, kidney cell is slightly bigger, that is 20 to 30 micrometer, and the muscle cell is even more bigger, that is 1 to 40 millimeter long, and nerve cell is the biggest. In the human body, the nerve or the neuron is the largest, that is about a meter long. There are small neurons as well, and there are big neurons as well, depending on the distance. Depending on the distance, the nerve cell size varies. Now, this is also another slide to depict that. If you see here, we have a scale 0.1 nanometer, 1 nanometer, 10 nanometer, 100 nanometer, 1 micrometer. So this is small. A nanometer is smaller than micrometer. Okay. Then we have millimeter, then we'll have centimeter, and then we'll have meter. So it is very small. Nanometer is even more small. Picometer is even more left. Come here even. So 1 micrometer, 10 micrometer, 100 micrometer, 1 millimeter, 10 millimeter. So plant animal cell will come between 10 micrometer and 100 micrometer. Bacterial cell will be around 1, 3 to 5 on average. Okay. Adult human. Okay, the nerve cell, if you take 1 meter. Biggest is ostrich egg, about 100 millimeter. These can be seen through a naked eye. You can see from 100 micrometer to 1 meter, you can see through the naked eye. But for micron scale, so till we are in the micron scale, we don't need anything else. So a microscope is enough, that will suffice. But if we want to go beyond, if we want to make nanoparticles, if I want to observe nano, okay, in the nano scale, even microscope will not be enough. Okay, not a light microscope. A light microscope will not be of any use. Light microscope can only be used for those organisms which are in the micron scale. So if I go one step further and if I want to view a nano scale object or a nano particle, I have to use an electron microscope, which is even more powerful. Okay? So this is how it works. Hope this is clear. Now coming to the cell shapes, okay, there are different types of cells. Okay, again when you talk about the shape, we know if you've seen a onion cell and a cheek cell, there is so much of variation. Onion cells look rectangular in shape, but If you take a scraping of your cheek, inner cheek, and put it and stain it and observe it under a microscope, they look circular. Okay, there's so much of variation, so much of disparity that is there in the nature. Similarly, if you look at it here, okay, the striated, that is a voluntary muscles, they look so much different from the smooth muscles, that is the involuntary muscles. Smooth muscles are spindle shaped, they have just one nucleus in the center. But if you take a striated muscle, they have striations all throughout and they are multinucleated. Okay, then when you come to a nerve cell is entirely different. We have dendrites, we have axon terminals, very different. Again, cardiac muscles are so much different. They also have striations. Okay, unlike smooth muscles. Bone cell. Sperm cell has a tail, a head, okay, a neck. That is how a sperm cell is found. Ovum, it is even more different. Red blood cells, they lack a nucleus. WBCs, that is inside WBCs, you have again different types. Lymphocyte is different, monocyte is different, eosinophil is different. It has granules inside, basophil has granules inside, neutrophil has lobed nucleus. There is so much of variation that exists in the cell shapes. Okay, even here, chlamydomonas, bacterial cell, okay, epithelial cell. Okay, epithelial cell has a basement membrane. Okay, it's so much different. So many variations are there. Now let's move ahead and see the classification of a cell. So how is a cell classified first? So we know there are two different types of cell. One is a prokaryotic cell, another one is a eukaryotic cell. Now what exactly is a prokaryotic cell? Something that is very primitive. So when the earth was formed at that time, when you had the archaebacteria, so from that stage, okay, from then those cells which were found at that period of time, that is called as a prokaryotic cell. Now what is the very typical characteristic feature of a prokaryotic cell? It has something called a nucleoid. What is a nucleoid? Nucleoid is when you have a cell, you have the genetic material lying in the cell. So you have cytoplasm and you have the nuclear material, that is the genetic material that is lying just like that. There is no covering. There is no covering outside. This is what is called as a nucleoid. There is no true nucleus. What do I mean by a true nucleus? When I have a cell, I have a nucleus covered by a nuclear membrane that is called as a true nucleus. But prokaryotes lack a true nucleus. There is one single cell, there is cytoplasm, and there is nucleoid, that is the genetic material that is lying. There are no cell organelles, nothing. So there is no division of labor as well. Example is bacteria, archaebacteria. Now coming to the eukaryotic cell, cell contains a true nucleus. So what is it? Now you have a cell, there will be a nucleus and the nucleus will be covered by a nuclear membrane. This is what is called as a eukaryotic cell or true nucleus. And apart from this, there will be different cell organelles. There will be ER, Golgi, mitochondria, lysosomes, all the other cell organelles. Now, when you talk about the prokaryote, eukaryote, there's one more important thing that we're supposed to know. Prokaryotic cells, all the cells are unicellular organisms. No multicellular prokaryote. All of them are single-celled organisms. But when you talk about eukaryote, there is unicellular organism as well as multicellular. So unicellular or single-celled eukaryote is a protist. The example is a protist. But multicellular eukaryote, example is fungi, plants, and animals. Now, some other cell types which we do not come across very frequently, we'll discuss about them as well. Some other cell types which we don't come across that frequently. So, first term is undifferentiated cells. First, before we go into undifferentiated, differentiated, or de-differentiated, we are supposed to know what is differentiation. Differentiation is a process by which a cell becomes structurally and functionally active and mature. Now, what is this process? Supposing we have a cell. Now, this cell does not have any other function except division. So, at this stage, we'll just call it a normal cell which can only divide. So, it is an undifferentiated cell. Now, if this cell is becoming a kidney cell, it's gained a particular structure. Okay, it's gained a particular function. Now, the kidney has a particular function, right? So, kidney cell has a particular function. What is the function? It is to purify blood, right? That is the function of the kidney cell. So now it has become structurally and functionally active. Similarly, now if I have a cell which the function of this cell was only to divide up to a certain point. This type of cell we call it as undifferentiated cell. There was no fate. What is fate? Now, what is fate? It's going to become. That is what is called as a fate. What it's going to become in the future. Now, this has become a kidney cell. Now, supposing there's another cell, the only function now at present is to divide. Now, after division, what happens? It decides to become heart cell. Now it becomes a heart cell. Now it has a particular structure and a function. Now we saw here cardiac tissue, isn't it? It is very different. Kidney tissue will be different. Fat cell will be different. RBC will be different. So every cell decides to become something. Like we have an ambition, right? I want to become this. I want to become that. Similarly, a cell also decides. Okay, cell determines to become something. Something. This particular cell will say, I'll become a stomach cell or a pancreatic cell or a liver cell. Another cell will decide to become a kidney cell. So it is structurally and functionally deciding to become, just like we decide to become this, to become that, right? We have an ambition, a goal. Similarly, the cell also has a goal or an ambition to become something. So the process of becoming something, okay, is called differentiation. Okay. Now this is an undifferentiated cell, but this, okay, now supposing this is the kidney cell, okay. Now if this is a kidney cell, this is a this this particular cell has decided to become a kidney cell. This particular cell has determined to become a heart cell. So that is what is the process. This is the process. This process is called as differentiation. To decide what to become, the cell decides what it has to become. So before that, we call that cell as undifferentiated cell. They are unspecified cell. They do not have a determined fate yet. Now, what is a differentiated cell? The cells which have undergone differentiation, process of becoming a particular type of cell. That is what is called as differentiation, to become structurally and functionally active and mature. Now, what is a de-differentiated cell? Now, supposing at some point of time in life, this cell decides to go back, okay, for the sake of cell division. Now, it says enough that I have become a kidney cell, I've been a kidney cell now. I want to go back and start dividing. Okay, this is what is called as a de-differentiation. The differentiated cells which have lost the capacity and move back to a simpler state. That is what is called as a de-differentiated cell. So I hope this differentiation process is clear. We don't come across this very frequently, but it is possible that there could be a question in the NEET exam. Now, cells in the human body are of two types. This is also something that is very common, somatic and germ cell, which we keep coming across. Okay, what is a somatic cell? All those cells which give rise to skin, internal organs, bones, connective tissue, everything is called as somatic. Except those cells which give rise to gametes. We have a specific term for that. We call them as germ cells. Germ cells are those cells that give rise to gametes. What are gametes? The sperm and the ovum. That those two cells are called as germ cells. Somatic cells are all other cells except these. All other cells which give rise to skin, internal organs, bones, connective tissue, blood, anything else apart from the gametes. This is called as somatic. Germ cells are those cells which give rise to gametes. So, hope this also is clear. All these terms have to be extremely clear to you. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this session. Hope you all enjoyed learning. Kindly share and subscribe and share it with your other relatives and friends. And also, since these are available in Tamil, you can send it across to people who prefer an explanation in Tamil. Secondly, if you have any doubts, queries, or suggestions or feedback, drop a message on the comment section below and stay tuned for more such content. Thank you.